In this video we'll be going over jagged arrays. So a jagged array is similar to a 2D array, but the rows in a jagged array can have different lengths. So we've gone over these in the notes. So in a traditional 2D array, each row has the same number of columns. So we can visualize a 2D array as a rectangular structure that looks like a matrix. So 2D arrays are sometimes referred to as rectangular arrays. A jagged array is similar to a 2D array, but the rows in a tagged array can have different numbers of columns. So they can have different numbers of columns. So again, you can think jagged, like the word jagged is like a knife. If you look at the blade of a knife, it's like there's different points to it. So like some points go in, some points go out. For example, the tip may have a longer kind of like sharp point, but the points in the middle may be smaller. So that's kind of like a jagged structure. So we can do an example. So we're going to do a code example here. So we'll just initialize one. So Microsoft changed the syntax. It's a little, I'm not sure what the developers were smoking, but they're using the Java and C syntax for 2D arrays, and then but for 2D arrays they changed the syntax to something completely different. So I'm not sure why they did that, but we can see that here. So for example, it's just like this. So that's the Java and C syntax to instantiate a 2D array. But if you remember, a 2D array in C# is done like that. But a jagged array in C# is done like that, so I'm not sure why they did that. So we could just call this int array jagged array. Points to new int of array index 3, and then index, just an empty index. So here we can have, so we can set some of these values in the constructor. So we can say jagged array of array index 0 points to new int of array index 4, and then we'll use an initial. So I think actually I don't think you have to, but this is probably the fastest way to do it. So just using an initialization list. So we'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the first row, and then notice how the rows. So you'll notice how the rows are going to be different lengths. So that's what kind of makes them a jagged data structure. So here, for example, we'll have jagged array of array index 1 points to new int, passing in, for example, a different size such as 3. Then here we'll have, for example, 5, 6, 7. And here we'll say jagged array of array index 2 points to new int of array index. So you could have a different length here, for example 6. Then here you could say, for example, that we have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 with a semicolon. So that's our jagged array. Each row has a different length of elements. Okay, so I think there's a lab to do here. Actually no, so just a little bit more notes. Okay, so basically that's the code. We could show a message box. So we could say message box. Okay, so let's go to back to the constructor at the bottom, and then we'll say, for example, here message box dot show. Message box dot show. Here we can pass in, for example, jagged array of array index 1 of array index 2, so it's, again, there, I don't know what the Microsoft developers were smoking. They were smoking something they shouldn't have been, because they use the Java and C syntax to pretty much just access elements in a jagged array, but for example, you can't do this in a 2D array. I believe you have to do this instead. Whoops. But instead, they're using, I'm not sure why they're doing that, but anyway, so we'll just say here .toString. So messagebox.show and then jagged array of array index 1 of array index 2.toString, so we can just run that. I'll tell you what the value is because I'm not sure if you'll be able to see the box, but so array index row 1 column 2, I think that's 6, so let's just have a look. Actually, sorry, so the value for that one was actually 7, so the array index at row 1 and then column, so because I accidentally went to index 1, so it's actually, we're saying 2, so we go row here, index, so the first row goes up to down, the rows go up to down, and then left to right. So this is column 0. So okay, so this is row 0, this is row 1, this is row 2, and then this is column 0. Well, I can't highlight it, but 1, 5, 8 is column 0, 2, 6, 9 was column 1, and 3, column 2 is 3, 7, 9, 3, 7, 10. Actually, I can't, well, I can singly highlight it like that. So that's column 0, 1, 5, 8. Then the next column is 2, 6, 9, which is column 1. Did I say that? So column 0 here, 1, 5, 8, and then column 1, 2, 6, 9, and then column, so 0, 1, 2. So column 2 is 3, 7, 10, so the value at array index 1, row 1. So it's not the 0th row, it's the first row here, and then the column is 2. So 0, 1, 2, so it should be this one. So I thought it was, I accidentally started counting by 1, so just be careful, remember to always start at 0. So we can also change the value, so we can change the value after that in the constructor here. So here we can say jagged array of array index 0, 3. So array of array index 0 of array index 3. You can point that to a value of 99, or you can say like 999. So then we can, again, we could show a message box to show that. So here we could say, for example, again, message box. Let me just remove that at the bottom here. So we could say message box dot show. We can pass in here jagged array of array index 0, array index 3, or array index 0, array index 3. Yeah, and then here we could say dot toString as well, because we have to pass it to a message box. So we can save that and then run it again. So you have to click the message. So if you do several message boxes in a row, you won't see the second one until you click OK or X on the first one. So the second value showed 99, then the form popped up, which we don't have anything in the any elements in the form, any controls. So a jagged array has a length property that holds a number of rows, and then each row has its own length property. So it's kind of confusing. So a jagged array has a length property. So you know that arrays have a length property. We've used that before. That holds the number of rows. So a jagged array has a length property that holds a number of rows. You've seen the length property itself before. We've used that. So on top of that, and then each row has its own length property as well. I think that's just something you can do. Like, you can do that in other languages too. It's kind of a trick to print arrays. That's just the way I knew how to do it from before. So we can do an example of that. So you can use a row's length property to determine the number of columns in that row. For example, the following set of nested loops displays all the values stored in the jagged array that was previously declared. So we can have a loop here. We can say for int row, or I would just say for int I points to 0, and I is less than jagged array dot length I plus plus. Sorry, excuse me. So, excuse me. So on a test, usually in university, they'll definitely ask you to loop through an array, especially a 2D one. So there's different ways you can do it, and they might want you to print the values in an actual 2D like structure. But they'll definitely ask you how to loop through an array. So that's the outer loop, and then on the inner loop we could have something else here. For example, so we'll have for int j now points to 0. J is I think the trick is here, so j is less than. So we'll say jagged array of array index I dot length. That's just another way you can print out arrays, or just work with arrays. So here you can say message box dot show. Then as a parameter, sorry. So then here we'll pass in jagged array as a parameter of of array index I, of array index j. Again, they're changing the syntax for a jagged array, which is dumb. So here we'll just pass a toString, because again we want to show the values in a message box. You could always print this to the console. We're using a Windows Forms app, so it's better to do that in a Windows console app instead. Because we're using the .NET framework, so it usually just works with Windows Forms apps, and I think there's something else, but we'll try to do that later on. So we'll just run it. So we'll run it again here. Okay, so we have 7999. Then it shows the values. This just shows basically the values of pretty much to just show the values in the array. So nothing too hard here. So that's pretty much it. So that's just jagged arrays. There's nothing too complicated about it. Remember that the only thing you have to remember about it is that pretty much it just has just a different row length for each index. So in the next video we'll be starting lists. So thanks for watching, guys. If you guys liked the video, you can like and subscribe to support the channel for more programming and investing tutorials. In the next video we'll be going over lists, so hopefully I'll see you guys there. Take care. Thanks.